are in Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 1. And we're just gonna read through. It's a lot of verses. We're gonna read through a census.
I must have missed some stuff. Numbers chapter 1.
Yeah. Last time when we were talking from Israel, we were doing like an introduction of
Oh, that's right.
to Bamidbar.
Okay. Bamidbar.
Right.
Start reading.
Yeah. So again, you're going to read. It's actually a lot of verses. It's like 47.
Let me take a swig of coffee.
Okay. You might need a couple in between too. You know what? We're going to read all the way through this chapter. It's 54 verses. And I'm glad we have a recording of this. By the time we're finished, we'll be able to reproduce your voice in every circumstance. And we can have an AI. That's it. That's it. That's the main purpose of this. Okay, here we go.
On the first day of the second month, in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying, take a census of the whole Israelite community by the clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names of every male head by head. I have a question.
Yeah.
I thought we weren't supposed to count ourselves. I thought,
right.
Is there any problem with that? So, but here he's saying take a census.
Right. So I think what you're referencing is in the back was in Exodus. So if you look back at Exodus chapter 11, Exodus chapter, what chapter is this? Verse 11. But it is chapter 30. So if you go back to Exodus chapter 30, verse 11. So Shemot, this is in the Torah portion of Ki Tisa.
Right. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, when you take a census of the Israelite people, according to their enrollment, each shall pay the Lord a ransom for himself on being enrolled, that no plague may come upon them through their being enrolled. Okay.
So you see what you're referencing, which is not that you can't do it, but you have to do it in a certain way so there won't be a plague. So in other words, counting people straightforward would be a problem, but you can do it kind of indirectly. Each person will
pay a shekel and then, okay. But that it doesn't say that here, but whatever.
Right. In other words, so what you'd have to say is, again, it's not forbidden to count the people. It's just that you have to do it in a certain way.
Okay. So you and Aaron shall record them by their groups from the age of 20 years up. All those in Israel who are able to bear arms associated with you shall be a man from each tribe, each one the head of his ancestral house. These are the names of the men who shall assist you. From Reuben, Elazar, son of Shadur. From Simeon, Shelumiel, son of Shaddai. From Judah, Nachshon, son of Aminadav. From Issachar, Netaniel, son of Zuar. From Zebulun, Eliav, son of Helon. From the sons of Joseph. From Ephraim, Elishama, son of Amihud. From Manasseh, Gamaliel, son of Pedahuz. From Benjamin, Avidan, son of Gideoni. From Dan, Ahizer, son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel, son of Ochran. From Gad, Eliasaph, son of Duel. From Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enam.
Okay, so there's going to be a census. the people included in the census are going to be males 20 and above, which most likely are going to represent the families. In other words, if you count males 20 and above, you're going to approximate how many families there are in Israel, right? Because they are most likely heads of a family at that stage. And each tribe there is going to have an appointed person, we'll assume elder, who is going to assist in the counting, so that each tribe is going to count. It seems like each tribe's going to count themselves, and then you're going to put together the count for everybody. Also, for people that are sort of interested in names, this is a chance to sample some of the names of Jews at the time. You'll notice there's a lot of names that have El in it. Like if you start with, not all, like you have in the Shimon tribe, which is verse 6, you have Shlumiel. In Issachar, you have Nitan El. In the Zvulun, you have Eliav. You have the El part at the beginning. In 10, you have, for Ephraim, you have Eli Shama. In Menashe, you have Gamliel. So that's one thing you see. You also have
from
God's name, Shin Daled Yud. You have in verse 13, you have Amishadai, so you have that Shin Daled Yud name, and then you have Pagiel again in from Asher, Eliasaph, Deuel, Ben Deuel. So not everybody, but a lot of people have some reference to God in their name, which is sort of interesting. But I know there are people that are sort of interested in these names. Also, Gamliel. Gamliel becomes an important name in the Mishnah times. Rabbi Gamliel. Hillel has a son named Gamliel. There's a Gamliel the first, Gamliel the second, Gamliel the third. But it's a very early name, as you can see here. Okay.
Can I ask about Manasseh and Ephraim? Joseph's sons, were they the ones sent? And if so, is it the mothers they're talking about? If you could just go back to that a second.
These are, so it says here, from the sons of Yosef. So the representative from Ephraim, his name is Elishama ben Amihud. And the representative from Manasseh is Gamliel ben Pedatsur. So it just a way of identifying them. One of the things that also the Ramban Nachmanides makes this point, that when the Torah speaks of the tribes, it's always 12. There are always 12 tribes. So if we're talking about the counting, there's going to be 12 tribes counted. Even though Levi is not counted, there will still be 12 tribes counted. When it talks about apportioning the land, there are 12 tribes that get land, even though, again, Levi doesn't. So when you're counting like this, or when you're counting when you're dividing up for the land, the way you get to 12 is by splitting Yosef into Manasseh and Ephraim. There are other times when you are counting Levi as part of the group, and when you do that, Yosef just counts as one. But for some reason, it's very important. The tribes always are represented by the number 12, which is sort of interesting. Okay.
Linda had time to have coffee.
What?
Linda had time to have coffee.
There you go. Yay. Also, when they are characterized, they're characterized in verse 16 These are those who are called to the community. They are the leaders of the tribes of their fathers. They are the heads of the thousands amongst Israel. You see that in verse 16. So these aren't just number crunchers. These are people that have these distinctions, which is sort of an interesting,
Very specific.
characteristic of them. The way he translates it, Aryeh Kaplan, is these are the communal representatives, the princes of their paternal tribes, and the leader of Israel's thousands. And then the term Beit Avot also denotes paternal extended families. So it's that other thing, leaders of Israel's thousands. That's a sort of interesting distinction.
Yeah, here it references back to Exodus 18:21.
And what is
saying Israel's thousands, the nation had been organized in groups of 1,000.
so these guys serve some kind of double duty.
Yeah.
They're not just a tribal leader, but they also are leaders of thousands
Right.
in there. Okay,
Each one had their own group of 1,000.
right. Okay. It doesn't tell us how, like when it says, these are the names of the men who will assist you. It sounds like God is telling Moshe and Aaron. It doesn't say how he tells them. The way it seems just from reading the text is that God just listed their names and said, these are the guys. That isn't the only option. I mean, he could tell them through some kind of a lottery, or he could tell them through some other means. But it sounds like he just told them the names. The thing is, at the ends, it says, Moshe and Aaron took aside these men whose names had been designated.
Yeah, it doesn't say designated by whom, how.
Right, or how. Okay. All right. Linda, we're ready for you to move forward. So you could start with verse 17. Oh, wait, we're not hearing you. We're not hearing you because you're, there you go.
I was muted. So Moses and Aaron took those men who were designated by name, and on the first day of the second month, they convoked the whole community who were registered by clans of their ancestral houses. The names of those aged 20 years and over being listed head by head, as the Lord had commanded Moses. So he recorded them in the wilderness of Sinai. They totaled as follows: the descendants of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, head by head, all males aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms, those enrolled from the tribe of Reuben, 46,500. Of the descendants of Simeon, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, their enrollment is listed by name, head by head, all males aged 20 years over, all who were able to bear arms, those enrolled from the tribe of Simeon, 59,300. Of the descendants of God, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms, those enrolled from the tribe of God, 45,650. Of the descendants of Judah, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms, those enrolled from the tribe of Judah, 74,600. Of the descendants of Issachar, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Issachar, 54,400. Of the descendants of Zebulun, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Zebulun, 57,400. Of the descendants of Joseph, of the descendants of Ephraim, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Ephraim, 40,500. Of the descendants of Manasseh, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Manasseh, 32,200. Of the descendants of Benjamin, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Benjamin, 35,400. Of the descendants of Dan, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, age 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Dan, 62,700. Of the descendants of Asher, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, age 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Asher, 40,500. Is that 41,500?
I have 41.
41,000.
Sorry, I had circled something there. Of the descendants of Naphtali, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, age 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Naphtali, 53,400. Those are the enrollments recorded by Moses and Aaron and by the chieftains of Israel, who were 12 in number, one man to each ancestral house. All the Israelites aged 20 years and over enrolled by ancestral houses, all those in Israel who were able to bear arms. All who were enrolled came to 603,550. The Levites, however, were not recorded among them by their ancestral tribe, for the Lord had spoken to Moses, saying, "Do not on any account enroll the tribe of Levi or take a census of them with the Israelites. You shall put the Levites in charge of the tabernacle of the pact, all its furnishings and everything that pertains to it. They shall carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings, and they shall tend to it, and they shall camp around the tabernacle. When the tabernacle is set out, the Levites shall take it down. And when the tabernacle is to be pitched, the Levites shall set it up. Any outsider who encroaches shall be put to death. The Israelites shall encamp troop by troop, each man with his division and each under his standard. The Levites, however, shall camp around the tabernacle of the pact, that wrath may not strike the Israelite community. The Levites shall stand guard around the tabernacle of the pact. The Israelites did accordingly, just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so they did."
Okay, so we get a number. We see some of these tribes seem to be much larger than some of the other tribes. For instance, the difference between Yehuda is 74,600, and some of these tribes like Asher are just 41,000. So you see some of the tribes have been very successful as far as numbers go, some smaller. The whole number is 603,550. This happens to be the same number from a previous census from Exodus. And there is some discussion about why that would be the case. Typically, when you hear people talk about the number of the Jewish people, they will use the rounded number 600,000. There were 600,000 Jews who left Egypt, or 600,000 Jews in the desert. And the actual number without the Levites is 603,550. But this number doesn't represent all the Jewish people. This number represents men who are 20 and above. So, which means that it would be more correct to say there were 603,550 households or something. This is a massive number. What to do about this number? I don't know. Like many numbers in the Torah, I don't know. Sometimes we are told to take them very literally. Sometimes we take them more symbolically, and I don't know how to know which is which. Yeah, so but that is the number that is often associated with the number of Jewish people. So we have the number 12, which is associated with the tribes, but we've seen it's depends on context how you get to 12, and now you see the number 600,000, and you have to see how do you get to that number. It's almost like you're working backwards, where 600,000 is the significant number. You're trying to figure out how does that work with the counting, because again, it's 603,550 men above the age of 20 for the other tribes, and then you have the Levim, who are counted somewhere. Somewhere the number of Levim are counted, but not here. What was it? Was it before? It was, I forgot where. I did see it somewhere where they talked about, or at some point they are counted.
They were counted separately,
right,
in reference to their higher status.
Right, but it doesn't say a number right here. But anyways, it's more than, so you end up with even more than 603,550. So that's one of those things about numbers, also about distances, also about time. You're not sure when the Torah is being exact and when the Torah is being symbolic. Another indication.
I found it.
Yeah, where is it?
It's I believe Numbers chapter 3, and it's verse 39. All the Levites who were recorded to whom.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Good. So there it says 22,000. Yeah, so you'd already be at 625,000. Again, those
are these other. Well, that's for another time. But if you go through, as I was, there were a lot other groups that they were counting.
Well, because we're going to see that when they moved together with three different tribes moving together. Right. So that's why it's.
So they had the Kohaths, and I don't want to. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, eventually we're going to get there. Also, there is this discussion of preventing a plague here, or of God getting upset. Right? We had that. About how the Levim are going to camp around there, so there won't be divine anger directed against the Israelites. So that was in chapter 1, verse 53. See it?
Yes, so that there'll be no wrath upon the assembly of the children.
So how does this prevent a wrath against the people of the assembly? So it may be that this this seems to be referencing one of the jobs of the Levites, which is to make sure that the people who are not supposed to be in the divine camp are not in the divine camp. People who are impure are not supposed to be in the divine camp. Certain types of impurity, pretty much any impurity, you're not supposed to be in the divine camp. So it's a job, we're going to see, it's one of the jobs of the Levites is to be guards. They're lahavdil elef alfei avdolos, but they're like the beef eaters. They are the special guard of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. And so that seems to be the role that is being indicated here. That's how they're going to prevent divine anger against the Israelites. The divine anger would be if people who were not supposed to be in the divine camp, which is going to be where the Mishkan is, where the tabernacle is, people who are not supposed to be there are not supposed to be there. So the Levim, by camping there, it's not just that they're camping there, they're actually going to play this role as guards. All together in the second Beit HaMikdash, there were 24 guard stations around the Beit HaMikdash. 21 of them were Levites, 3 of them were Kohanim, which are a subsection of Levim. And here when they talk about Levim, they're including Kohanim in the group of Levim. Kohanim are a very small group at this point. They just Aaron and his family, right? But eventually, the Kohanim are going to be. It's going to be a larger number, but still, when it comes to actually being the guard around the Beit HaMikdash, it's primarily going to be Levim, with just a couple of those places are going to be Kohanim. By the way, this is not the only place that this happens, but if you look at that last verse, 54, it says the people did exactly as God had commanded. It should be pointed out that that does happen in the Torah. This doesn't get as much fanfare as when we're not doing what God asked us to do, but there are places, including the last couple of Torah portions of Exodus, where it goes over the building of the Mishkan and the putting together of the various items and articles and stuff. It says over there also that the people did like Moshe told them to do. So it does happen. In case anybody ever asks you, there is a place that says we did what we were supposed to do.
Since then, not so much.
Right. Now, we've already seen this about the Mishkan, but the Mishkan is meant to be moved. We're meant to travel with it by design. And the people who are assigned the responsibility to move it are the Levim. That's going to be a job of Levim that's not going to happen after we get into the land of Israel. Once we get into the land of Israel, even though we still do have a tabernacle, but it's not designed to move. They believe that the tabernacle at Shiloh, which I got to spend a moment or two by there, they believe that it was a kind of hybrid, that there was a stone and tent combination for the Mishkan, but it was clearly not designed to be mobile. So this notion that of a mobile Mishkan is meant for the desert and the desert alone. So it's not this responsibility of carrying the various vessels. We're not going to see this in any collection of law afterwards, like Maimonides, when we're studying the book of mitzvot of Maimonides. He's not going to include the responsibility of the Levim to move the various items of the Mishkan, because that was something that just happened once. It's not meant to happen. So, and that's an interesting way of distinguishing different commandments in the Torah. There are some commandments in the Torah that are very specifically discussed, like the day where we inaugurated the Mishkan, the Mizbeach, the altar. So there's all sorts of detail about what needs to be done then. And it's something that's only happening once. It's not, if there was an inauguration of the Beis HaMikdash, it doesn't follow the rules of the inauguration of the tabernacle. It was its own thing. So there is detail, a lot of detailed discussion about something which is going to happen once, and it's the commentaries take every detail very seriously, and we're encouraged to study those details just like we studied the details that are going to continue to be important in our everyday life, with the assumption that there is some kind of wisdom in the design, that you could learn something about the design or about the particular work or the way in which they're being asked to do that work, so that there's an assumption that that there is wisdom to be learned from it, that can be unpacked from it. If I'm certain there's been somebody who does this, that goes through the entire Torah and finds all those sections of the Torah that either because of this reason, because
looking for a specific instruction.
Right, but you're talking about something that's not going to happen again. So it could be because of that, or it could be because of culture and lifestyle, the sociology. In other words, let's say slavery. Any of the laws that apply to slavery, we're assuming we're never going back to slavery. So any of the laws that are about slavery, or the laws that are about certain kind of styles of farming. Again, you might be able to apply some of the principles to new ways of farming. It's possible. But it could be that there's just a lot of law. Let's say not yoking two different types of animals as you're plowing. So now that we don't plow with animals, so how often are you going to be presented with a situation? Now, maybe there's something where you can extrapolate from it to a practical halachic situation. Yeah, or maybe there's somebody somewhere who's going to do it. It's possible, but you could find big chunks, anything to do with idolatry. Technically, you could go to parts of the world where there is some remnant of idolatry, but it's very unlikely that you're going to encounter idolatry in your everyday work. So
use it as an everyday word.
Right. Right. So yes. So you are now learning kind of a secondary message. You're not learning the direct message, but you're learning a kind of secondary message. From this, but it's a different approach to it. If you looked at all the various issues, now that we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, any of the laws of sacrifice or laws of purity and ritual purity and impurity, almost all of them are not applying practically in our life. Now, our hope is that speedily in our day, the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt, and these laws are going to once again apply very literally and practically. But by the time you're finished, there's a big chunk of stuff that we are learning as with a secondary focus than as opposed to primary. Again, what I mean by that is that we're looking for the meaning behind the law more than we're looking at the particular law. would sort of also be interesting if somebody, I'm sure somebody's done this, if they did a kind of a survey to see which laws take up most of our attention. And because you could say like kashrut law is still a big part of everyday life. But even within kashrut law, there might be just a couple laws that are getting most of the action, or where there's most of the attention. So you could ask yourself on a given day, how much of the average person's life is taken up by how many mitzvot? Like how many mitzvot? Sort of interesting to get to see what that is. Yeah.
Probably be different for different people too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was once doing a list with a young man who's now growing up. He's now going to graduate high school. But when we were doing it, he was, I don't know, like 10. And we were coming up with, it would be like a field guide for mitzvot, just like they have field guides for birders, where you'd write down the bird you've identified and characteristics about it, what day you saw it on, etc. So if it would be sort of interesting to have one for mitzvot, like you came across this mitzvah and it was sort of a rare opportunity to do it. You helped an old lady across the street, so you got to do that mitzvah, and you'd write down the mitzvah you did, and you'd write down what day it was, just sort of like one of these birders who was doing it for a birding catalog. But it ended up that there's not that many, because first of all, this would only be about positive commandments.
Yeah.
Right? Not negative commandments. I guess you could also, what mitzvah, what avera did you stay away from today? But that one. So you're talking about positive commandments. I think we came up to about that there's only like 55 positive commandments that could be in a book like that, which is, yeah.
All that, those be only 55.
Right, but you could, like, let's say you take a mitzvah like love your neighbor as yourself. Right, you could have 100 expressions of that.
Yeah.
You could like walking a person across the way. So it doesn't mean you're only doing a few things, you're doing various permutations of it. But anyways, the fact that we're reading about, and this is true of a chunk of the book of Bamidbar, we're reading about a time that there's no plan to re-experience. We're reading about a time that was, it has very unusual characteristics. One of them is this mobile Mishkan. We're going to read all sorts of details about it. We're about to read about how they camped. All this information about a time that was and is not going to be again. Okie dokie.
Can I say something about it's
Yes.
kind of irrelevant, and I'm not making a joke if you have a minute, but when you were talking about the mitzvahs, it reminded me of Girl Scouts and Cubs and Boy Scouts, where you
It also me.
have merit badges.
While I was saying it, I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, we're
Yeah, I was
reading each
thinking about
other's
it too.
minds.
Yeah, the merit badges. Yeah, merit badges. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm sure you could do something like this with kids, and then you'd find a way not to just limit it to something that's technically called a mitzvah, but all the various permutations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There are people that go out of their way to do sort of exotic mitzvot, what they call exotic mitzvot. So leaving a corner of your field. I would only do that if I owned a field. So there might be somebody who would own a field or get part ownership in a field, so they could do the mitzvah of leaving a corner of their field and also the gleanings and stuff. There are people who go out of their way to shoo away the mother bird, that mitzvah. There are people that try to make their own. Now, making their own matzah is not it's a preparation for matzah. It's not necessarily the fulfillment of it. But I remember a couple of years ago in Chicago, they redeemed a firstborn donkey. This is not something you'd get a chance to necessarily do every day. And they did it they had like a whole public, they made it an event because it's a rare mitzvah, right? So to be present at the redeeming of a baby donkey on a sheep, which was sort of cute. Yeah. Okay. Also, when I mentioned about getting rid of the people that are impure, also there are certain parts of the camp, of the divine camp, where non-Kohanim are not allowed to enter, right? So it would be part of the job of Levim to make sure that there are not non-Kohanim who are trying to enter, even if you're pure. Okay. All right, so the next chunk, the next section that we're going to be doing is about how they moved while they were traveling in the desert. So they moved in formation, and there's actually a lot of detail here about that, about how they moved. So it's going to take the whole next chapter. There's also mention of a degel, of some kind of a flag or banner that each tribe has, but there's going to be a certain position where the tribe that the tribe's going to take when they move, and then when they come to rest. And so that's being described here. And so how about if we do that as well? Again, it's the whole chapter, which is going to be 30 something verses.
34.
34. You want to read that, Linda?
Sure.
Okay.
The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, the Israelites shall camp each with his standard under the banners of their ancestral house. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance, camped on the front or east side, the standard of the division of Judah, troop by troop, chieftain of the Judites, Nachshon, son of Aminadav. His troop is as enrolled 74,600, camping next to it, the tribe of Issachar, chieftain of the Issacharites, Nathaniel, son of Zuar. His troop as enrolled 54,400. The tribe of Zebulun, chieftain of the Zebulunites, Eliav, son of Helon. His troop as enrolled 57,400. The total enrolled in the division of Judah, 186,400 for all troops. These shall march first.
Okay, so now it says here they're on the east, right? It said east.
Right.
So they're going to be marching first as long as you're traveling east. But at some point, they're going to travel north because they're going east until they need to go north. Yeah. Eventually, they're going to go north and then even come back a little bit west.
But wouldn't they be in the east side of the tabernacle?
Right, but you're not going to be.
No matter what direction they're moving.
Right, but here at the very end, it said, on the march, they shall go first. Right?
Okay, yes.
So
they also said they said camped on the front or east side. So maybe
right.
They're in the front and they happen to be heading east now.
Yeah, what happened?
Camped in the front, east side.
So you're suggesting that east is the one that is secondary, being at the front as they travel is primary. Correct. Which might be, but it did.
Does it change when they're?
Because it starts with camp on the front and it ends with these shall march first.
Right, but when it started, it said kedma. It in verse 3, it says camping to the east, the direction.
Well, it says Mizracha, which is east, right? What
Right.
is Kedma
It
mean?
says kedma. Kedem is also kedma, I guess, is where the sun is first. So Yama Tzafon, Yama v'kedma tzafona v'negba. You know those. So Yama means towards the sea. Kedma means in the direction earlier. So it has kedma.
It doesn't say front anywhere in Hebrew.
Not in the beginning. Not in verse 3. It says kedma mizracha, which is to the east or whatever, before, to the land of before, which is Mizrach, where the sun is rising, where the sun's rising.
It's Degel Mechane, like the camp
Of
flag,
Yehuda, right, of Yehuda. So it starts by saying east, and then it ends by saying they will go first. So you've got a couple options. One is
It doesn't say where they all go first in Hebrew.
no, at the very last line, Rishona Yisa'u.
They will march first, but I'm sorry, it didn't say anything about being in the front.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it could be
My translation is, I guess, a bad translation.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that's how, yeah, it's not a literal translation. Because
Right.
literal would be they shall travel first. Right. And that could mean
Little
that you're
side.
not at the head.
Nachshon's sister Elisheva is the wife of Aaron. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just a little side note there.
It's good. It's good information. That's good information. All right. So just to keep track of that. So we've got those three tribes together. You have Issachar and Zvulun and Yehuda. Issachar and Zvulun are also Leah tribes. They are Leah tribes. So Yehuda, Issachar, and Zvulun are three tribes that are from Leah, which is also interesting.
Wait a minute. Who's from Leah? Issachar, Zevulun, and
Yehuda.
Yehuda.
All three of those are Leah tribes.
Interesting.
Right. And now we're going to have the next grouping. So let's see who they are. Go ahead.
On the south, the standard of the division of Ruvain, troop by troop. Chieftain of the Reubenites, Elazar, son of Shadir, or whatever, his troop as enrolled, 46,500, camping next to it, the tribe of Simeon. Chieftain of the Simeonites. It's so much easier to probably read it in Hebrew. What is it? The son Shelumiel, son of Zuri Shaddai. His troop is enrolled 59,300. And the tribe of Gad, chief of the Gadites, Eliasaph, son of Ruel. His troop is enrolled 45,650. The total enrolled in the division of Ruvain, 151,450 for all the troops. These shall march second. Want me to go on?
Right.
What direction they're going.
Right. So they start marching.
Right.
Okay. So they
were
march
on the south side. They started
Right.
on the south side.
Right. So far we have the east side and the south side. Now here we have two more of Leah's children, Reuben and Shimon. Those are Leah's children, but the third one is Gad. Gad is from Zilpah. So Gad is from Leah's maidservant.
Wow.
So we've had 5 tribes so far out of the first 6 tribes. When it comes to marching, 5 out of those are from Leah's children, and then you have 1 from Zilpah. Okay, so you've had the east and the south going, and then Go ahead in verse 17.
Then midway between the divisions, the tent of meeting, the division of the Levites shall move. As they camp, so shall march each in position by their standards. On the west, the standard.
Okay, wait. All right. So now that's the sixth of Leah's sons. So you've had all six of Leah's sons plus one from her maidservant. So altogether, so far, everybody that's moving in these first three groupings are descendants of Leah. I'm just pointing it out, sort of interesting.
Well,
and now, yeah, go ahead.
They were firstborn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to continue?
I do.
On the west, the standard of the division of Ephraim, troop by troop, chieftain of the Ephraimites, Elishama, son of Amihud, his troop as enrolled 40,500. Next to it, the tribe of Manasseh, chieftain of the Manassites, Gamliel, son of Pedro, his troop as enrolled 32,200. And the tribe of Benjamin, chieftain of the Benjaminites, Avidan, son of Gideoni, his troop is enrolled 35,400. The total enrolled in the division of Ephraim, 108,100 for all troops. These shall march third.
Okay, so now they're really fourth, technically. No. Yeah, they're really fourth,
really
technically.
fourth, 'cause the Levites went in the middle.
Right, because the Levites are going in the middle for some reason. They're not counted Levite one. But now in this side, you have just Rachel's children. You have Yosef, who's represented by two of the tribes, and you have Benjamin. So we've had all of Leah's kids, but one of we had God, who is from Zilpah, and then and now we're having all of Rachel's kids, all of Rachel's kids, and now we have one last grouping, and that's in verse 25. Go ahead.
On the north, the standard of the division of Dan, troop by troop, the chieftain of the Danites, Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai, his troop is enrolled 62,700. Camping next to it, the tribe of Asher, chieftain of the Asherites, Pagiel, son of Ochran, his troops enrolled 41,500, and the tribe of Naphtali, chieftain of the Naphtalites, Ahira, son of Enan, his troop is enrolled 53,400. The total enrolled in the division of Dan, 157,600. These shall march last by their standards. Do you want me to read the last little bit?
Right, so there you have the rest of what we'll call the maidservants' kids. So you have Dan, who is from Bilhah, and Naphtali, who's from Bilhah, and Dan, and
what about Asher?
And then Asher is from Zilpah. So for some reason, one of Zilpah's kids is out of order. God, for some reason, God is out of order, but the rest of it sort of makes sense. You'd have Leah's kids first, then Rachel's kids.
Who's the father of God? Who?
Yaakov's.
No, the tribe of God. God is from Zilpah, and who's the father?
Yaakov. Yaakov is the father of all these kids. They end up all being tribes. It's just sort of interesting how they're divided here.
Yeah.
Divided up, which is interesting. Okay, and then just finish it off.
Those are the enrollments of the Israelites by ancestral houses. The total enrolled in the divisions for all the troops, 603,550. The Levites, however, were not recorded among the Israelites as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Israelites did accordingly, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So they camped by their standards, and so they marched, each with his clan according to his ancestral house.
Okay. All right. So we will stop here. I apologize. I am sorry to do this. It is just the next Thursday. I'm not going to be able to meet.
Oh,
I hope it's the last time for a long time. But next Thursday, I will not be able to meet.
okay. Well, thanks for giving advance notice. I
Okay,
appreciate
all right.
it.
Okay. And
care.
grateful to do it.
Is that March 2nd?
Yeah, it's March 2nd.
Yeah,
Okay.
March 2nd.
Because Torah meets
The next,
next,
but
that's on the Tuesday.
right, we'll be able
We'll
to
deal
meet
with
after
that.
No, we'll be able to meet for that.
March
Okay,
We will meet.
so the next time we'll meet is the 9th, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. All right, be well, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good
Thanks,
Shabbos.
Rabbi. Thank you.
Very grateful.